people playing our games. And it was always fun to see when the lights turned on in the morning and when they turned off. And this was live, so you could see when people were playing the games and when we're not. So it was always fun to see who's playing that game out in that island in the middle of nowhere. But I want to talk about Clash of Clans. And Clash of Clans is a game where you want to understand your core values. And what I mean by that is it used to look like this. This is how Clash of Clans started. And you can see it looks very different than what it looks like today. And it's very cutesy. And this is kind of look they were going for when it first came out. But we kind of have a problem. And it wasn't taken seriously enough. So we needed to establish some rules. Okay, so what are the rules? It's in a village. There's no pain. There's elixir. There's no evil characters. And it's the important thing is it's not nerdy. Right? It's fantasy with a twist. And this is a core principle that would go throughout the Clash universe. So we took this guy, kind of looks like a toy, and we did a first pass. And this is kind of where the barbarian ended up to be. I mean, of course, there's still some changes, but you can see this is the core essence of what the barbarian became. And this was a great catalyst for how we thought about developing the art for the Clash universe. So, making memorable characters. Take a look at this guy. Now, I love this art, but I would say this is a little complicated. I'm going to give you time to look at him. All right, and now try to draw that from memory. Try to draw that from memory and see how many things you can remember. Do you remember his belt? What was the weapon? You know, what color were his outfit? It's very difficult. Take a look at this character. Now, you could probably, now, of course, you've seen the movie, but if you were to look at that character for the first time, you could probably recognize and draw that character more easily than you could the previous one. And that is kind of the philosophy I have around making characters, which is highlight and don't clutter. So let's take a look at the barbarian, 2 versions of him. Now, we could have gone with the one on the right? It's got a helmet, it's got a shield, it's got a cloak, a little satchel, but these things were too much. These things communicated too many things. And the game is meant to be simple. It's meant to communicate just by looking at what you can see on screen. And all you really need to know about the barbarian is he's kind of crazy, he's kind of slow, but he's got a sword, and that's all you really need to know. So we took out all the different things, helmet, wristbands, and all these things, and we just simplified it. So simplify. This is one of my favorite images by Ashley Browning, these color block things. Now, can anyone recognize what this game is from? Some of older generations might know it. It's this game, Street Fighter. And what I love about Street Fighter is that every character is iconic. You can easily recognize, Ryu, Dhalsim. They all got really nice color blocking. If we could look at more examples, you could probably recognize these, Simpsons and Star Wars. And we could do the same thing with the barbarian. So if we simplify the barbarian, you just have the yellow color block, his skin tone, and the skirt and sandals there. But this is the most important. Form follows function. So let's take a look at barbarian again. And we want to look at him on how you're actually going to see him in the game. That's how big he is on your screen. Now, of course, he's actually bigger here than the phone, but this is kind of relative because that's the biggest you see when you're attacking in the village. Here's the barbarian, but hundreds of them on screen. And if you imagine the character that I had previously with all the extra bits on it, this would get very noisy very quickly. But the great thing about the barbarian is he's there because he's got the yellow hair and the sword, and that's all you kind of really need to know in this game. All right, so let's get familiar. We're talking about characters, and we're thinking about, how do I make players resonate with this character? So let's take a look at these guys. Barbarians again. Maybe you've recognized it from a few of these guys. If you're wrestling fans or old 80s cartoons fans, you might see some inspiration from the Barbarian of the Wave Master. Now, the Wave Master comes from Clash Mini, which is a game we actually killed when I was working in Shanghai, but it's the same principle. So we could take these characters, who we all might be familiar with, and we could take another local legend, Chuck Norris, rest in peace, and we can add some kind of mermaid elements to him until you get something like this. And you can see here, this is actually some inspiration from both ABBA and Chuck Norris and some other inspirations until you get something that you go, I kind of know this guy, but I don't, and that's what makes it so fun. So let's focus on gameplay. Again, this is from Clash Quest. It was a boss called the Jello Knight, or Jello King. And the problem with that one concept is it's very straightforward. It doesn't tell me how I can see this guy in game. So a lot of artists will just do a straight-on image of a character, and you don't really get a feeling for what he can do, so it's better to put him in context of the game that you're working with. So this is for Clash Quest. So now we can see him from a top-down view, and we start to feel how he would be in game. A better idea is to put that context with his attack. So you can sell the designer, you can sell the player on, oh, okay, now I understand what this character can do. And we like to do that with a lot of our characters to make sure that it's actually going to work in game before we spend a lot of time building it. So another thing that you should do is ignore what doesn't matter. Remember how I said ignoring the extra bits? But I'm talking about here in terms of context. So this was also for Clash Mini. This is a temple where the healer would come from, and this took inspiration from the lower right-hand corner. But when we see it in context of a game, this is all you see. And really, because it's a phone, this is all you see. So this is the only stuff that matters, and you want to spend most of your time within this area. You can also fix it later. So the great thing about live games, which Clash is you can fix stuff. Let's take a look at the Grand Warden. The Grand Warden before had, some kind of strange facial hair. So we've updated him to be the one on the right. Now, of course, you can keep doing this and you keep updating this. A lot of games do this. League of Legends, a lot of mobile games do this. But of course, you're not always going to get fans. This is the feedback that you usually get. So ignore Reddit when you're doing this. But that's a great thing is you can constantly update old art. You also want to experiment with new ideas. Clash Royale was birthed after Clash of Clans. This is what it used to look like. So eventually you get something like this. You put them in a royal arena, and the theme of the IP starts to make sense. So we also want to expand purposefully. So families of units equals consistency, and this is what I mean. So typically in the IP expansion, if you look at Warcraft or other games, this is how the expansion usually goes. It kind of goes horizontally. So you start with barbarians, skeletons, and then eventually you get into like elves and aliens and pandas, and you keep on going that way, right? But that doesn't add a lot of depth. So